Israel recognition of Somaliland triggers condemnation. Japan stabbing and spray attack injures 15. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Otto Othman. Somalia and the African Union reacted angrily after Israel formally recognized its northern region of Somaliland as an independent and sovereign state, the first country to do so. Somaliland has for decades pushed for international recognition, which has been the key priority of President Abdulrahman Mohamed Abdullahi since he took office last year. But a Somali Foreign Ministry statement warned the decision is a deliberate attack on its sovereignty that would undermine peace in the region. Several other countries also condemned Israel's decision. The African Union said it firmly rejects Israel's move, warning any attempt to undermine the unity and sovereignty of Somalia risks setting a dangerous precedent with far-reaching implications for peace across the continent. Turkey, also a close ally of Somalia, condemned the move. It said the initiative by Israel, which aligns with its expansionist policy, constitutes overt interference in Somalia's domestic affairs. Egypt also condemned the move and emphasized full support for unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity of Somalia. The United Nations interim force in Lebanon said an Israeli attack near their position in the country's south wounded a peacekeeper, reiterating a call for Israel to cease aggressive behavior. UNIFIL said heavy machine gun fire from Israel Defense Forces at south of the Blue Line impacted close to a UNIFIL patrol inspecting a roadblock in the village of Bastara. It said the gunfire followed a grenade explosion nearby. The force added the sound of the gunfire and the explosion left one peacekeeper slightly injured with an ear concussion. UNIFIL said another patrol carrying out a routine operational task also reported machine gun fire from the Israeli side in immediate proximity of their position in Kaf Shuba, South Lebanon. The peacekeeping force said it had informed the Israel army of its activities in the areas. A major Gaza hospital that had suspended several services due to diesel shortages said it resumed some operations after receiving fuel, but warned the supplies would only last about 2 days. Ravaged by more than 2 years of war, Al-Auda Hospital in central Gaza's Nusrat district cares for around 60 inpatients and receives nearly 1,000 people seeking medical treatment each day. Earlier, a senior official involved in managing the hospital, Ahmed Mahana, said most services had been temporarily stopped due to shortage of fuel needed for the generators. But he later said 2,500 liters of fuel arrived from the World Health Organization and the hospital immediately resumed operations. He noted that the fuel will only last for 2.5 days, but the facility has been promised an additional delivery next Sunday. An explosion killed at least 8 worshippers at a mosque in the predominantly Alawite area of Syria's Homs. Another 18 people were reportedly injured. The Sharia Ansar al-Sunnah group said its fighters detonated a number of explosive devices in the Imam Ali bin Abi Talib Mosque in the central Syrian city. The attack during Friday prayers in on the Alawite community and the second blast in a palace of worship since opposition forces took power a year ago. Security forces cordoned off the area around the mosque, while inside, personnel stood guard at red tape encircled the blackened debris-strewn corner where the blast went off. Syria's Interior Ministry said a terrorist explosion targeted the mosque, and authorities had begun investigating and collecting evidence to pursue the perpetrators. At least 15 people have been injured in a knife and chemical attack at a factory in the Japanese city of Mishima. A man has been arrested for the incident. Emergency services were seen at Yokohama Rubber Company's factory after reports of a stabbing attack. Now, according to the public broadcaster, an unspecified liquid was also sprayed during the incident. A firefighting department official said all 15 victims were taken to hospital. Of those injured, 8 suffered stab wounds, while 7 were hurt by exposure to the liquid. 5 of the victims were classified as requiring emergency care by emergency workers at the scene, but all have remained conscious. A 38-year-old man who was wearing what appeared to be a gas mask was arrested at the scene by police on suspicion of attempted murder. Violent crime is relatively rare in Japan, which has a low murder rate and some of the world's toughest gun laws. However, there are occasional stabbing, attacks and shooting, including the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in 2022. Thailand's Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul expressed hope for a ceasefire with Cambodia. Now, he said Thailand's National Security Council had agreed to send the country's defense minister to meet his Cambodian counterpart on the 4th day of border talks aimed at negotiating an end to deadly clashes. Now, the Prime Minister said that if the Defense Minister reaches an agreement with his Cambodian counterpart, both countries will proceed with a deal in line with the previous pact brokered with the help of U.S. President Donald Trump after an earlier round of clashes in July.
ก็ขอให้เที่ยวนี้เป็นการลงนามครั้งสุดท้ายเถอะนะครับจะได้เกิดสันติภาพในพื้นที่พี่น้องประชาชนก็จะได้กลับบ้านตัวเองนะครับแล้วก็หวังว่าท่านรัฐมนตรีกลาโหมท่านก็คงมีความคิดเหมือนผมนะครับ
Thai and Cambodian officials have been holding parleys at a border crossing since the hostilities between the two countries continued. The ceasefire broke down in early December with more than 100 civilians killed. Still ahead, U.S. airlines cancel over 1,000 flights due to winter storm.
MyCard bukan sekadar kad pengenalan, tetapi medium utama yang menghubungkan rakyat dengan pelbagai perkhidmatan kerajaan dan swasta. Banyak insentif kerajaan disalurkan melalui MyCard, daripada bantuan kebajikan, kemudahan kesihatan hinggalah pelbagai program rakyat. Inilah keistimewaan yang dimiliki oleh setiap warga negara Malaysia. Sila periksa keadaan MyCard anda. Sekiranya chip rosak, hilang atau MyCard sudah uzur, segera lakukan penggantian di Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara agar hak dan kemudahan anda sentiasa terjamin. Inilah komitmen madani. Dengan dokumen identiti yang sah, moden dan diyakini, rakyat disantuni sebaiknya. MyCard, identiti anda, kebanggaan negara.
Welcome back. The U.S. research firm Ocean Infinity confirmed that it is resuming the search for the plane of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which disappeared in 2014. With backing from the Malaysian government, the company is restarting the hunt for the missing aircraft. The representative added that due to the sensitive nature of the operation, all official updates will come from the Malaysian government. A specialized Ocean Infinity vessel is en route to Australia's west coast to resume the search. The Singapore-flagged Armada 8605 departed from its anchorage near the port of Kerana on 23rd December and is heading to the southern Indian Ocean, where a search for the missing aircraft had been underway. The ship serves as a launch platform for autonomous underwater vehicles capable of mapping the deep sea bed. The active search phase is set to begin on 30th December. In March, Malaysian authorities agreed with Ocean Infinity for new efforts to find the airplane. In April, Transport Minister Anthony Loke said Ocean Infinity had paused the search due to off-season conditions. Airlines in the U.S. have cancelled or delayed thousands of flights due to winter storm during peak holiday travel, while some states restricted commercial road traffic in anticipation of snowfall. More than 40 million Americans were under winter storm warnings or weather advisories one day after Christmas. New York, the country's largest city, is bracing for up to 25 centimeters of snow overnight, the most in 4 years. Temperatures are forecast to drop and remain chilly into the weekend when an Antarctic blast swoops down from Canada. Now, according to flight tracking website FlightAware, at least 1,800 flights were cancelled and over 22,000 were delayed. More than half of the flight cancellations and delays took place at New York's John F. Kennedy's Airport, Newark Liberty International Airport, and LaGuardia Airport. New Jersey and Pennsylvania, meanwhile, issued commercial vehicle restrictions on some roads, including many interstate highways. Ahead of the winter storm, New York and New Jersey already declared a state of emergency. Meanwhile, torrential rain triggered flash floods and debris from warnings across fire-scarred areas of Southern California as a series of Christmas storms hit the state. Now, the storms, driven by an atmospheric river known as the Pineapple Express that carries moisture from Hawaii to the U.S. West Coast, are expected to bring months worth of rain to California within just a few days. Homes and vehicles could be seen partially buried in mud and debris as a result of heavy rains in California. Heavy rain began lashing Southern California on Wednesday, where some communities had already seen 10 inches of rain in the first storm. At least 3 people died in storm-related incidents, including a man killed by a falling tree. A Moscow court sentenced a former Russian diplomat to 12 years in a maximum security penal colony for selling secrets to U.S. intelligence while on a posting to the U.S. The Federal Security Service, FSB, said Arseny Konolovov, born in 1987, had been found guilty of treason. It was established that Konovalov, an employee of the Russian Foreign Ministry during a long-term foreign assignment in the U.S., proactively transferred secret information to American intelligence for money. Konovalov was detained by the FSB, which leads Russian counterintelligence, in March last year. The FSB did not say that what information Konovalov had passed to U.S. intelligence or which U.S. agency he was accused of working with. Local newspapers said Konovalov had served as second secretary of the Russian Consulate General in Houston. He worked in the U.S. from 2014 to 2017. French President Emmanuel Macron's popularity has reached its lowest point since he was first elected in 2017, days before he is to deliver his end-of-year message. Only 25% of the French people polled in the Taluna-Harris Interactive Survey had favorable opinion of Macron. The head of Taluna-Harris, Jean-Daniel Levy, said it appeared that the French were judging Macron through the prism of domestic politics rather than his foreign policy positions. The survey involved 1,099 French adults contacted online. It found that 37% of them intended to watch Macron's end-of-year speech to be broadcast live on 31st December, down from 40% last year. Now, according to the poll, the popularity of all leaders in France's political class slid this year. The far-right's Jordan Bardella, who heads the National Rally Party of Marine Le Pen, came top with 42% favorable opinions. The poll's margin of errors is between 1.4 and 3.1 percentage points. Next up in sports, Salah penalty gives Egypt win over South Africa.
Menggosok baju sekaligus boleh menjimatkan elektrik.
Fitness has become the top priority for national men's doubles pair Aaron Chia and So Wee-ik as they gear up for the new Badminton World Federation BWF World Tour season, which kicks off with Malaysia Open on 6th January. Aaron said the duo are placing greater emphasis on strengthening their physical condition, taking into account the growing physical demands of the sport, the increasingly congested tournament calendar, and the need to maintain peak performance as they progress in their careers. He added they also strictly follow the training programs that have been planned, including the recovery sessions. Aaron also welcomed the suggestion by National Doubles Coaching Director Rexy Mainaki for national players to be more selective in choosing tournaments to compete in. He described the move as timely and beneficial in managing workload and sustaining performance throughout the season. He expressed the hope that their tournament schedule next season would be kept below 20 events to help ensure they remain in optimal physical condition throughout the campaign. Mohamed Salah scored a first-half penalty as 10-man Egypt defeated South Africa 1-0 in their Africa Cup of Nations Group B clash in Agadir to become the first team into the knockout stages of the competition. Salah won the penalty when he was clipped in the face by South African defender Kuliso Madu as they tussled for the ball in the box and stepped up and easily convert for his second goal of the tournament. But they were reduced to 10 men in added time at the end of the first half when Muhammad Hani stamped on the foot of Teboho Mokena and received a second yellow card, leaving his side to play the entire second half with a numerical disadvantage. Mudu's shot forced a good save from Mohamed El Shanawi as South Africa camped in their opponent's half to try to force an equalizer. Liles Foster's flick into the path of Aubrey Modiba created another opportunity from 8 yards, but El Shanawi saved again and South Africa were left to ponder a frustrating defeat and their first competitive loss under coach Hugo Broos in almost 2 years. Egypt have 6 points from their opening 2 games and have won the group with a game to spare. South Africa, meanwhile, have 3 points from their 2 games. Elsewhere, Al Hilal head of a late comeback from Al Khalij to secure a 3-2 home win in the Saudi Pro League. Goals from Muhammad Kano, Sergej Milakovic-Savic and Malcolm had the hosts 3 up and cruising before late strikes from Joshua King and Yargos Masuras made for a nervy ending in Riyadh. Al Hilal sits second in the league on 26 points with 8 wins and 2 draws from their opening 10 matches. Al Khalij, meanwhile, find themselves 8th on 14 points. Al Nasr lead the way on 27 points with a 100% record and host Al Khaldud later tonight. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola is confident his squad have responded in ideal fashion after warning them against piling on the pounds during the festive period. City enjoyed a comfortable 3-0 pre-Christmas win over Premier League strugglers West Ham to stay just 2 points behind leaders Arsenal. But Guardiola, who has won 6 league titles during his spell at the Etihad, is famously demanding, revealing his men had been weighed before their short break and told not to overindulge ahead of tonight's early kickoff away to Nottingham Forest. Victory will see Guardiola's side back on top of the table before the Gunners host Brighton. And while the manager confessed to a degree of seasonal excess, he expects his players to have maintained their fitness standards. The hosts may only be 5 points clear of the relegation zone, but Guardiola insisted a match at Forest City ground is a tricky assignment. He said the team is really good and had invested a lot in the years apart from being promoted in the Premier League. City are on a run of 7 straight wins in all competitions, with the club in contention for several trophies. The betting scandal in Turkish football deepened as 29 people, including 14 footballers, were arrested. Their arrests follow the incarceration of 6 referees and the president of a top-tier club, Spor, at the beginning of November. Amongst those arrested were a former president of Turkish giants Galatasaray, Erden Timur, the vice president of Spor, Fatih Kulaksiz, a director of the Turkish Football Federation, businessman, and a former policeman. 6 of the suspects are accused of influencing the result of a match in October last year, and the 14 players had placed bets in a manner that could affect the result of the match. They bet on the victory of the opposing team in the match against their own club. According to the prosecutor's office, suspect transactions were identified on bank accounts, notably money going in and out considered to be linked to bets, suspicions that the origins of funds were being concealed, and unusual financial transactions. British number 1 Jack Draper will miss the Australian Open next month as he continues to recover from an arm injury. Now, the world number 10 has not played since withdrawing at the US Open due to bone bruising in his left arm. In a video posted on social media, Draper said it was a really tough decision, with the Australian Open being a Grand Slam and one of the biggest tournaments in the sport. However, he said it does not seem like a smart decision right now for him and his tennis to step back on court into best-of-5 set tennis so soon. Prior to the injury, Draper had enjoyed the best year of his career as he won his first Masters 1000 title in Indian Wells and broke into the world's top 10 for the first time. The 24-year-old former world number 4 is targeting a February return alongside preparation for the defense of his Indian Wells title in March. The Australian Open, meanwhile, begins on 18th January in Melbourne. Stories await you in our Offbeat segment. Stay tuned. Workers at the Grand Egyptian Museum began assembling King Khufu's second boat, installing restored wooden planks on a metal frame for public display. The number of pieces of the second boat is 1,650 pieces. The wood was in a very poor condition, but it was restored through Egyptian-Japanese cooperation with 2 Japanese universities. The display allows visitors to watch the reconstruction, which is expected to take 3 to 5 years from up close. Tourism and Antiquities Minister Sharif Fatih described the project as one of the most important restoration projects in the 21st century.
The diversification of touristic products we have in Egypt is unmatched. You can't find it anywhere in the world.
At about 42 meters long, the second boat has structural and functional differences from the first, including the number of oars and accompanying metal elements. The restoration of King Khufu's second boat began after the discovery of 2 boat pits in 1954. While the first boat was reconstructed and displayed, the second pit remained sealed for decades to preserve its interior. Giant panda cubs have been filmed enjoying their leisurely life in their enclosures, with one pair was seen sharing a friendly hug, while another trio were caught frolicking around at the Chengdu research base of giant panda breeding in China's Sichuan province. The 2 heartwarming scenes were captured at the base's Star Giant Panda Nursery House and were recently released on the iPanda multimedia platform. In one scene, 2 fluffy baby pandas were seen cozily embracing each other with their interwoven black and white fur, resembling a traditional bagua diagram, which is most commonly associated with Chinese feng shui. In another clip, 2 more energetic panda cubs were seen messing around in the open space between some wooden logs in their enclosure. The pair appeared to be engaged in a play fight, which sent one of them tumbling over before a third panda arrived on the scene and muscled its way in action, creating a very lively atmosphere. The Chengdu research base of giant panda breeding is famous for its work in protecting and breeding giant pandas and other endangered wild animal species exclusive to China. British street artist Bansky unveiled his latest work in central London amid speculation over an identical second work, which has appeared elsewhere in the city. The black and white mural painted on the side of an old building in Bayswater shows two people, probably children, in winter hats and Wellington boots, laying down, looking up and pointing to the sky. A wide-angle photo of the artwork at Queen's Mews in Bayswater made it look as if the people in the image are laying on top of a corrugated iron-roof garage, part way up a two-story building. But almost identical artwork also appeared a few miles away under the multi-story Centre Point building in Tottenham Court Road, where the two children can be seen looking up at the London skyscraper. Both images attracted interest from passersby and generated much speculation on social media about whether Bansky was behind them. However, only the Queen's Mews artwork had been posted on Bansky's social media. Oaxacans savoured ornate taproot sculptures during the traditional Night of the Radishes. Each year, artists and gardeners gather the day before Christmas Eve to exhibit radishes intricately carved into designs reflecting themes from religion to daily life. The event stems from Mexico's indigenous agricultural industry and has expanded into a colorful festival. This year, long lines of spectators gathered in Oaxaca's central square to witness the skill of artisans as they worked on their displays. Participants, Heriberto Mendez Aquino, said artisans adhere to a rule of using only organic materials, avoiding non-organic resources. The origin of this unique tradition dates back to the 16th century, when the Spanish introduced radishes to Mexico. Legend has it that two Spanish farers motivated local indigenous workers to cultivate and carve the vegetable as a strategy to boost sales. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, Israel's recognition of Somaliland triggers condemnation. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. I'm Otto Othman. Salam Malaysia Madani and have a great weekend.